Joining me now is the Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California. She's the chair of the Majority Leader's Task Force on Poverty and Opportunity. She's a member of the Appropriations and Budget Committees and a former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She joins us today from El Paso, Texas, and we're going to get to the reason for that in just a moment. But, Congresswoman, I have to talk to you about this issue that is going on in Georgia. The companies that are based in Georgia that are apparently turning a bit of a blind eye to this, the idea that all of these changes are just meant to make it harder for people to vote and do not have any apparent tie to this voter fraud that everybody is apparently chasing. Your thoughts on this attack on democracy that has taken place this week?
Thank you, Ali, and good morning. Let me tell you, these are fundamental attacks on our democracy, which they're un-American, and we're at a very defining moment. I mean, what is taking place, it takes place under dictatorships. I have monitored elections in many, many countries, making sure that they're fair and free. And what is taking place here in the United States is very similar to what has taken place throughout the country in terms of dictatorships. So I am very concerned that these actions are taking place in terms of voter suppression. And of course, they're targeted toward people of color, specifically African Americans. That is why we have got to pass H.R. 1, which increases and makes sure that there's voter access, and also the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which is H.R. 4. That has to happen. We have to have federal protections, because otherwise we're going to go back to before the days of Jim Crow. We're going to go back to days where African Americans were, quite frankly, not seen as human beings. And so we are continually fighting back. I am so proud of Representative Cannon in Georgia. I mean, she stood up, she fought back, and you see what voter suppression looks like in terms of how she was treated when she was just trying to gain access to what she should have been able to gain access to.
And let's just remind our viewers about that. I'm going to ask my control room if they've got the video of Representative Cannon. She was attempting to gain access to the governor's chambers. There was a signing in there. There were a number. I mean, the imagery was kind of remarkable. As she was being arrested, what was going on inside the governor's office, there were a number of white men signing this bill into law in a big hurry, and they were actually signing it under a painting, believe it or not, I guess it's a painting that's always there, of a plantation, a slave plantation in Georgia. This is what we know of as civil disobedience, the arrest of a legislator. It is something we've seen in the United States. It's something we saw in South Africa. It's something we've seen all over, where someone is trying to protest a law that is in place that is unjust. It is a remarkable thing to be watching in 2021 Georgia. Representative?
Yeah, it's outrageous. Remember the images and what took place when our beloved John Lewis and those who fought to gain the right to vote marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Remember how they were beat. Remember how they were jailed. Remember what brutality they experienced as a result of just trying to gain their full democratic rights, the right to vote. Here we once again see how an African-American woman representative is being treated by the police, trying to deny her absolute rights to be able to witness the signing of a bill. It is just, it's scary in many respects, but I tell you one thing, African Americans are not going to stand for that. We're fighting back. We're making sure that we have the votes to move forward on these two bills. We have got to end this filibuster so that we can pass H.R. 1 and we can pass H.R. 4, because this is, again, a fundamental moment where our democracy is at stake. And I have seen dictatorships, and I have seen what has happened to people when their rights are taken away. This is also an issue of human rights. I've served as a representative to the United Nations. I know what violations of human rights are.
Representative, speaking of human rights, you are in El Paso, Texas, because you're bearing witness to the situation at the southern border. And depending on who you ask, the characterization of that situation is very different. The Homeland Security Secretary is talking about the U.S. being on pace to achieve the highest number of border crossings in 20 years. Border Patrol says they've encountered an average of 5,000 undocumented immigrants a day over the last 30 days. What is your view of what's going on down there and what needs to happen?
Sure, thank you. I was born here in El Paso, Texas, into an immigrant community. And I have to tell you what we are doing. First of all, we visited Carrizo Springs right outside of San Antonio and talked with many of the young children who were being held there until they can be transferred to their parents or their sponsors through the Office of Refugee Resettlement. These young people are coming, fleeing violence, fleeing poverty. And in fact, we have asylum laws. Of course, this past administration just destroyed all of any asylum laws that we have. And so what the Biden-Harris administration is doing is trying to repair the damage of the last 4 years in terms of immigration. And what we're trying to do is make sure that these children are healthy and that they're safe and that they are provided the opportunity to get with their parents or their sponsors in an expeditious fashion. And so now today we're in El Paso and we will be looking at the border, what is taking place at the border, and also many of the wonderful nonprofits here who are making sure that they ensure that these children have a safe and healthy place to live.
Representative Lee, it is early for you this morning. We are always deeply appreciative that you take the time so many mornings to join us and our viewers to let us understand what's going on. Democratic Representative Barbara Lee of California in El Paso, Texas. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.